Okay.
They should be able to hear you, right?
Can you hear us, Phil? Okay. So welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, 1 o'clock, Friday, October 4th, 2024. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Jim Bradley's going to lead us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Hey Bill, nice shirt.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure Jeff is able to make it. He was, I guess, laid up yesterday and stuff.
He didn't want anybody to talk about it.
Yeah, I know, but I just wanna.
So we have one item on our agenda. Engineering manager, resolve that the town of Fairfield may enter into with and deliver to the United States Army Corps of Engineers, New England District, any and all documents deemed to be necessary or appropriate for a waiver of rights and statement of intent to donate property for the Southport Harbor Federal Navigation Project, operations and maintenance dredge, and a right of entry ROE, and be it further resolved that William A. Gerber, as first selectman of the town of Fairfield, is authorized and directed to execute and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of Fairfield, and to do and perform all acts and things deemed to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded. So who will be starting this discussion? Will that be Phil, Jeff, or Bill?
I'll leave it, I could.
Why don't we lead it off? Yeah.
Sure. The podium's usually here, but just wanna highlight that the town has been working with the town attorney, Harbor Management Commission, Country Club of Fairfield, and I think even the Pequot Yacht Club, trying to get this project underway. This project is the Army Corps of Engineers dredging Southport Harbor Channel. The last time that this channel was fully dredged was in the 60s. So this opportunity does not come along very often. We've asked for several decades for the Army Corps to be involved and get this done. So finally now is our chance. And that's why I appreciate, and I think everybody here appreciates the Board of Selectmen being able to hear this on a special agenda because it is time sensitive. And so basically looking it over and we have the town attorney here as well. Basically it's the Army Corps wanted us to give them a temporary easement for their access. Whether it be for trucks or just fueling the Currituck, the dredging, the equipment there, vessel. And just for access, so they have to go over town land or any town interest that we have. So we would grant them a temporary easement. And with that temporary easement, the federal procedure is that technically the town could get some money for that. But being the fact that we're not gonna do that, plus it would be another 6 months, I think, if we were to do that. So I think the town is waiving its right. Sometimes they call it a waiver of appraisal and compensation. And so the engineering department, and certainly I think most of the town departments approve this method, and I think I can bring it to either Jeff or Phil, whoever wants to speak next.
Yeah, Phil, do you want to talk about the easement, or is there anything you'd like to add?
Just to clarify, so the documents today are the waiver of compensation, as Bill mentioned, and a right of entry, which takes effect immediately. The other document, which is not yet before this body, and it's because it's not finalized, is a joinder to an easement. The property in question, the club is granting an easement, and the town is consenting to the easement, agreeing with the easement. So that's the other document that is not yet finalized. That's not before the board today, but I think it'll be probably added to the agenda on the 9th.
Okay. Jeff,
Can I
anything?
just say something, if you don't mind? And I'm not familiar with the document in front of you. We just briefly looked at it, but thinking about what we're doing, the history of this is really fascinating in Southport Harbor. And the Harbor Commission and the town have been working on this project for over 30 years. So that the Southport Harbor is served by a federal navigation project that's authorized by an act of Congress. It's one of the earliest in the United States. It was authorized by Congress in 1829, interestingly. And the first authorization was to build this jetty along the harbor. Of course, the purpose was to keep the sand from drifting east to west into the harbor channel. And then over time, there was a designated channel, navigation channel. And this was all related to the fact that Southport was one of the principal ports in Connecticut back in the early 1800s. But again, the purpose of the jetty was to block the sand moving into the harbor. And back at that time, interestingly, the harbor was dredged by local people using oxen and road scrapers at low tide. So when you think about what we're looking at here, it's really, we're learning about the history of navigation projects in the United States. And there's been amendments to the authorization of the channel and the depths of it over time. And then as the commercial port uses were gone, it became exclusively a recreational harbor. Back in the 1930s, there was discussion about eliminating the federal navigation project because it didn't serve commerce anymore. But then it was specifically reauthorized to serve pleasure boating, recognizing that this is a center of recreational boating. In the 1980s, there were issues involving the town and use of the navigation project, which is to be open to all on equal terms, and it led to the harbor management plan. It led to certain agreements between the yacht club and the town, and how everyone, regardless of town of residence, could apply for a mooring permit in the federal anchorage. And so that when the harbor management plan was approved by the state of Connecticut and then adopted by the RTM, we resolved these issues having to do with the public use of the navigation project, and the Corps of Engineers agreed to go forward with a comprehensive dredging project of the whole project that had last been dredged, as Bill said, in 1960. So we went through and we had an authorization from Congress. It was called an add-on to the congressional budget to maintain the whole channel, including the 100-foot width of the channel here. But at the time, DEEP, it was the DEP, not DEEP, would not agree to dredging the whole 100-foot width because of the location on the sandbar of plants that are on a state list of threatened species. So we could only the Corps could only dredge the 75-foot width of the channel. And at the time, the Public Works Department and Engineering, which has always helped the town amazingly, they excavated material from the side slope using long-armed excavators, trucks. They took it and they re-nourished Sasko Beach with that material. But still, it was only the 75-foot width of the channel. Then after Storm Sandy, the Public Works again excavated sand, but only to restore a 75-foot width, and took the sand to other town beaches to nourish them. We still have the ongoing problem of this. So several years ago, the Corps of Engineers, actually with the Bureau of Aquaculture in Connecticut, worked out what they felt and was a novel approach to restoring the 100-foot wide channel. The Corps would use its own dredge. It's a hopper dredge with a hydraulic dredge that essentially sucks up the sand into the hopper. You go offshore a distance, the hull splits and disperses the sand. And the idea is with the Bureau of Aquaculture that would be a pilot project for oyster cultivation on that. But the other aspect of that, and that's why we're discussing this agreement today, is that Corps' dredge can't remove all of the sand using the hydraulic operation and still scope the side slope. So the Corps would have a crew that would come in and use an excavator, just like the town did in 2014 and 2004. And that's the purpose of the agreement, to have the excavator go along the shoreline. It wouldn't go back and forth. It would go to the beginning of the project and essentially excavate sand and put it into the hopper of the dredge. In addition to the dredge sucking it up itself, the excavator would dig up sand and put it into the dredge. And when they're finished, they would leave.
Is that the destination for that sand? Is it going to be offshore?
Yes, because it would all be placed into the dredge. And then
and dropped offshore. And so that is still the idea that we can have potentially oyster beds.
Yes, because it's still, the dredge is putting it up there, but sand from here would be put into the dredge by the excavator. And the very interesting thing, or beneficial thing now, is that previously Deep wouldn't agree to restoring that 100-foot channel because of the presence of the plants on it. And then back in 2014, because of the presence of a nesting pair of piping plover, which we had to do a bunch of invasive species and around the plover. And we've monitored the piping plover ever since 2014 and before, Connecticut Audubon. And there have been no nesting birds since that time. So that's not an issue now. And the Harbor Commission, with its budget, retained a professional botanist to recently come out and assess the plants and the location of the plants. And so we think we have and the Corps is agreeable, we have to move some of the plants. In cooperation with the Country Club of Fairfield, we transplant a few of them. There's maybe 100. It's called sand drop seed, I think. It's a threatened plant. But very interesting. The Corps spent, the federal government, to their credit, of course, has spent an awful lot of time planning this project where we are now, including a crew from the Vicksburg district in Mississippi that came up that would be operating, just to check out everything, that would be operating the excavator. And the dredge is based in Wilmington, Delaware. So their crew came up to look at the conditions of the site. And the Pequot Yacht Club, I have to mention. And again, they have a responsibility to work with the town to assist with the management of the harbor. But they've been tremendously supportive and took the DEP people who were reviewing the permit application by the Corps out in the launch to view the extent of the encroachment. So it's really been an intensive effort to try to do the project this year. Very good thing, and we have the DEP approval now, which is good for several years. And the DEP approval allows for the 100-foot width of the channel to be restored. So I'm sorry to go on so long, but it's a fascinating history.
Just one, so for so they're gonna, how far off will the sand be dropped from the dredge?
It's outside, it's off, distance off. We should have brought a drawing with you, but
That's okay.
But I will say that the Harbor Commission has prepared two presentations that are on the Harbor Commission's website now about the history of the harbor and the dredging operation. And we're updating that now to talk about what we're doing here. So in the next day or so, the stuff that I've been blabbering on about is will be on the website a little bit more. But the site is a distance offshore.
Is it in that lower photograph?
No, it's further west.
Further west.
But so doing that though, does that impact the risk of during a storm, that sand just coming back to where it started?
No, not because it's on the other side of the channel.
Okay.
So the drift is from east to west.
Okay.
And then if it doesn't work out with the Bureau of Aquaculture for the pilot project for oyster cultivation, the understanding is it would still drift west and
Okay.
perhaps onto Southport Beach.
And the pilot project, so will they be, so once the sand is dropped out offshore, is there is additional work that the Bureau of Aquaculture needs to do to create these oyster beds, or?
We haven't gone through all the details of doing that.
Okay.
And when we doing this planning and the Corps has done modeling with the currents and the depths and so forth to see where the sand might go. And so there was concern that the sand might migrate sooner than later, and that would have an effect on the beneficial use of the oyster habitat.
Right.
But that was considered okay because it would still be in the natural littoral system.
Right.
And would go towards Southport Beach. So we haven't worked out details of the actual planting of the oysters, but we do have approval from the Shellfish Commission. This was several years ago.
But there won't be any sort of like placement of large boulders?
No.
Okay, yeah, okay,
There wouldn't be anything
like that.
any obstructions or anything to that change with what conditions are here. But that's different, you know, I got off the topic of the agreement.
Well, it's good background for the agreement, yeah, which I think most of us knew already, but it was a good summary because I just learned some things I didn't know, so. On
the website, there's some more description of what I talked about. I think there will be a lot of interest by people when this begins and
Class trips.
What is the timing of this in terms of start
next month.
next month?
So Phil, we have to have the agreement it has to be done really soon, right? But it has, yeah.
So this document, they want these two documents today because the right of entry is going to allow them to at least enter without a formal easement. The formal easement is something that would come before the board next week. The document that the town would sign is a jointer to the easement, confirming it consents to the easement.
Okay.
And once the project begins, how long do they anticipate it?
Hope to do it in 1 month. And the reason that we're, it's difficult for us to do something, but the dredge, that the Corps' dredge is in demand across, the Atlantic coast, and apparently it's scheduled to go down to the Gulf Coast in December. It's in New Jersey now, or at least it was. And the name of the dredge is the Murden, M-U-R-D-E-N. Just sent a link to you, but they've been recently working in the Manasquan Inlet in New Jersey. And so we searched on the website, on the computer for this. There are news reports and quite a bit of discussion about how that dredge is operating and the need for it. But again, I'll stop after this. The good thing about this is that the Corps does it with its own dredge. It didn't have to go out to contract, for the Corps to select a contractor and go through competitive bidding. And so the cost of the project is based on the cost of operation of the government dredge. Forget how much money was authorized by the federal government, over $1 million to do this, but there's no anticipated or cost share by the town for this. It would be all with federal funds.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the public?
I think there's such keen interest in this project, and we will await word from the Corps on when we can collaborate with the Corps to announce. I think it's not quite ready for prime time yet, but hopefully that moment will come soon.
I would like to take the opportunity to thank you and Kim and Jeff and Phil and everyone else who worked on this, because Kim came in several times and Don did as well. And you made us aware of the implications of not getting this done ASAP. So Phil, thank you for working with the Army Corps and making sure that we can get it done, and working with the country club as well. So seeing no other comments, you ready to vote? Back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Unanimous.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, everybody.
So motion to adjourn. All seconded. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned.
Exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One more to go.
Yeah.